I didn't know much about Christian conferences except that they seemed like church camp for adults, inasmuch as you pretended to be better friends with people than you actually were, and there was a snack every night. I was barely 30, and Why We're Not Emergent, by two guys who should be, had just dropped. This book came out before Twitter, which I think is really important. In that, if the book had dropped in 2021 and was called Why We're Not Deconstructing by two guys who should be, it would have been essentially the same book, but the reception would have been a lot different. In 2006, pre-Twitter, pastors were allowed to genuinely like something that was potentially uncool without having to do the calculus of how it would play on Twitter. Actually, I hope someone young and talented is working on Why We're Not Deconstructing. I'd read that now, and I think we really need it. I was at the Moody Pastors Conference with my wife, whom I'd been sneaking past the Moody Gestapo all week. This is super fun, because apparently there are no women in the men's dorms motif extended even to married couples. Anyway, want to meet Name Redacted, my co-author on Why We're Not Emergent and co-speaker at the conf, Kevin DeYoung asked. If you don't know Kevin, it's because he's had a quiet little career in the intervening years, basically dropping off the internet completely and selling a succession of moderately to not at all successful books. Wait a minute, that's me. Kevin is famous now, and for good reason. He's a good writer and thinker. But he wasn't famous then. And I didn't know the aforementioned celebrity from any of the other tweed jacket and bow tie types at this conference. Sure, I replied, and we ambled over to a middle-aged guy behind a table signing books, which pretty much sums up the entire vibe of the Moody Pastors Conference. Kevin introduced himself, and we started talking to the guy, whom I've since learned is, of course, incredibly accomplished. But then a funny thing happened as we were talking. The guy fell asleep. Like first it was half-lidded Garfield-type eyes, then full-on, chin bobbing down to his chest, and then waking up with a start. It was at this point that I fully understood the evangelical fame rocket ship that Kevin and I were on together. I finally understood the excess and decadence that draws people to the conference circuit. We then had a snack and went back up to our rooms. Life in the fast lane. That was my first taste of evangelical celebrity. Writing that book with Kevin, I've learned, almost made me like a kid who starred in a third-tier network show 20 years ago. Sometimes, even today, a colleague will introduce me as the guy who co-wrote Why We're Not Emergent, and I'll be forced to come up with an appropriate, self-deprecating, demure response. I'm like the Ricky Schroeder of Christian publishing. Serious question, though. Why do we clearly and obviously still want a thing that we know is bad for us? Meaning we clearly make fun of evangelical celebrity as our own means of dealing with the fact that we haven't made it to that level. Yet inside we can still name a myriad of ways that we know that it's not good for us. We can probably separate evangelical celebrities into a few categories. Full-on, fame-embracing clowns. These guys are the ones who create a personal logo for their own names or initials, chase arena shows, and are pretty shameless about it. The inevitable scandal that follows when it turns out that money, fame, and power are all bad for a person's heart surprises no one.